Mr. Afonyushkin, he will brief us on the impact of AGPs and therapeutical antibiotics on the normal microbiota in the gut flora.
О, перещелкнулось. Да, хорошо. Ага. Ну, итак,
Right.
все-таки модератор у нас Светлана Щепеткина.
Svetlana Shpelkina is the facilitator. She doesn't like antibiotics. I love antibiotics, but I believe that proper administration is the way. So, all right, let me start by saying that sometimes antibiotics will harm rather than help you. And E. coli candidosis, clostridiosis is when you don't have to use antibiotics. The enterococci have a very small surface area, and enterococci and staphylococci are resistant to many drugs. And even if you increase the titer, but on average, and the statistics prove that, the survival rates go down rather than go up because enterococci compete with lactobacteria, and antibiotics will suppress them even more. If we are talking about gut infections or infections localized in the intestine, they are indirectly linked with biocinosis. Colibacteriosis, well, the situation is basically the same. Eduard Javadov, our well-respected academician, told us that it's secondary to viruses. But what if bacteria combines with the virus? What do you think? What's going to happen? It was mentioned on day one. Nothing is going to happen. Well, nothing is not the right answer because virus will not penetrate the bacteria, but the bacteria, since it has enzymes, will destroy the virus. Therefore, when you suppress the gut flora, you risk accumulating various viruses such as rotaviruses, coronaviruses in the intestine, and then they can replicate in the gut and then disseminate to various organs. So they will accumulate in the inflammatory exudate, and it's going to be a vicious cycle. Candidosis. The situation is even worse here. And when you administer antibiotics, you see patients start suffering from candidosis. As for clostridiosis, it might be even more aggravated. In addition to suppressing Clostridium perfringens, you can actually provoke a protective reaction from Clostridia. They will generate toxins, and oftentimes neurofloxacin in a form suffering from clostridiosis resulted in lower productivity and higher mortality. They administered different antibiotics, but the morbidity and mortality rates went up just because of the things I just mentioned. Let me reiterate once again that we cannot give up antibiotics altogether. As for the center of significant microorganisms are concerned, we have to discern between the flora that can be suppressed by the antibiotics and the positive symbionts. Salmonellas are not detected here after before the antibiotics administration, and then 100% identification after antibiotic administration. That's the 100% infection. Lactobacteria are suppressed, and a week after antibiotic administration, the infection level remains low. So I guess organic amino acids and antibiotics should be properly selected to ensure the right effect, because they will restructure the gut flora uh, in broilers with a mature immune system. You will see a better situation. Bacteriophages can be administered, and the statistically significant results can be achieved because most of the antibiotics that we try to monitor in terms of efficacy against salmonellas, that was the only case when we demonstrated a stable and a long-term effect. And our facilitator can be happy because this is something that she is definitely right on.
Ну, в данной ситуации, конечно, вы со мной не будете спорить. Я бы тоже не спорил.
Да я, в принципе, с вами не спорю. А зачем?
Ну
Зачем?
как? Я так же интересней. Или даже пример, когда мы искренне верили в
Let
колестин.
me give you another example. Colistin is not absorbed. It stimulates lactobacteria because it suppresses other types of flora. We thought that it would suppress salmonella, but it was just the opposite. Salmonella antagonist turned out to be a gram-negative organism that suppressed colistin, and all the birds were infected with salmonella. No matter how much I loved colistin, I had to agree with that. And plasmid plasmids are
У сотрудников птицфабрик, но у их семей и их детей.
Мы не обнаруживали, если что. Мы
Международные
проверяли. Мы
Международные
проверяли. Это в других
50%.
странах разных.
colistin resistance was identified in various countries, but they have different strains, and our sanitary practices are better. We identified lactobacteria, did antagonism tests, and the green wells shown in the slide mean that lactobacteria managed to suppress E. coli. For salmonella, it's basically the same, which is expected because even if you stimulate lactobacteria, it's not a fact that the situation with salmonellosis is going to improve. Most lactobacteria cannot ensure a large-scale positive effect. Much depends on their subtype. So what I'm saying is that the biocinosis type is the definitive factor. Just take my word for it. The green wells mean that there is no salmonella. Light wells mean that there is salmonella infection. There is a farm infected with salmonella. I'm talking about a breeder farm, and if your lactobacteria are good, you can just relax. And if your lactobacteria is poor, then nothing is going to help you. And this is something that we need to do to deal with. Much depends on the gut microflora. On the other hand, the farms are different, and you need to study them individually. As for the AGPs, first and foremost, we don't know how they work. We use them in concentrations that are not enough to kill the bacteria, the target bacteria, but they disappear nevertheless. And the question is why? Well, it's like a conveyor belt. Birds excrete pathogens while they replicate at a different speed. This is just one AGP which did not kill the bacteria, but it stopped moving, and therefore it stopped replicating in the gut, and you see a sustainable result. Another important factor to keep in mind, various AGPs, antibiotic growth promoters, are administered to different birds, and sometimes we cannot replicate the protective effects. And this is especially true for replacing antibiotics with amino acids. We did a number of tests, and citrusine with amylase complex was the combination used. It was not done in a vial, and we saw a definite reduction. In certain cases, especially, well, this is data for Clostridium perfringens and the way it is suppressed by various antibiotics. In some cases, what we see is a combination of several pathogens. That's the bacitracin and in different combinations, and they reduced the concentration of Salmonella enterica, while in other cases it went up statistically significantly. In pullets, in breeders, we calculated the DMTCQ, and zinc bacitracin suppressed Salmonella in the gut flora, but all the other experiments prove the lack of efficacy. So don't trust things that you see even in the scientific articles. You have to model and you have to select an individual approach to a farm. I'm done. Thank you so much, Vasily.